Gatekeeping is the great divide for Lost Ark. On one side, people who have put in countless hours into learning mechanics want easy breezy homework, and on the other side, new players are basically shut down from any and all content requiring grouping up. I'm going to break down the whys behind this and what to look for to ease your lobbying experience with a surefire way to get around gatekeeping every single time. Welcome to the video. I am back with another guide for new and returning players on maybe the most controversial aspect of Lost Ark. This is my 5th vid that looks to aid new and returning players, and with my credentials, 6,000 plus hours, it may not be shocking to hear that I also gatekeep. Using my personal experience, I will look to break down its many factors and how you can get into lobbies quicker. So what is gatekeeping? The easy answer is not letting lesser experienced or geared folks into lobbies for better options in the application's process. Lobby leaders 95% of the time have the option to scan a variety of applications to their lobbies. Through a quick glance at the initial page and then a look at their character page, the lobby leader can learn a plethora of info about the user and the character applying. Like I said, 95% of the time, folks are comparing applications in one way or the other to decide whom they will let in. That more rare 5% is lobby leaders just allowing anyone in, typically on a first come first serve basis, or the more rare option, letting those lesser rostered characters in to aid the new player experience. So what are these factors? I'll break them down to categories of most likely, likely, and less likely to show the indicators used by lobby leaders to determine if they should let you into their lobby. One of the main ways you can see as soon as someone applies to your lobby, eye level. This is a popular Reddit thread back when Vaulted and Vicus Gold wasn't nerfed. Basically, on eye level applications weren't being accepted because why would someone who has 20 reclear applications take someone at 1460 when there's 18 other applications with someone at 1500 plus? Eye level gatekeeping is the most noticeable in Icon reclears. Since having more Icon gear gets you higher eye level easier, you will noticeably do more damage than someone without Icon gear. I personally am not 1620 yet, and there's almost zero chance I get into a 1620 Gargadeth lobby since legendary elixirs just hit different. The next factor for gatekeeping, and likely the most popular form of it, roster level. There are two forms of experience you get from nearly every form of content in the game: character level and roster level experience. Character experience is useless after level 60, but roster experience is a huge grind, and with 6,000 plus hours, I haven't even maxed out with 300 even remotely yet. This is the best gauge for quote-unquote experience in the game, as it takes a whole lot of manual grinding to get, which is essentially hours put in. I can already hear the yelling. No, this doesn't mean they are better at the game, but it does mean they have more quote-unquote experience in the game in most cases. For this reason, it is typically the go-to main factor to determine if someone will accept your applications. Doing weekly content and things like cubes will gradually get your roster level up, but if you really want to juice it, running story is giga amounts of roster experience. Additionally, doing things like Adventure Tomb and especially the early tiers of Tower is brainless content that will boost your roster level, especially if you have alts. The next factor is your build, but specifically a decent 5x3. No weird engravings like Crushing Fist, but a typical 5x3. A +1 always helps, but anything less will likely be an immediate turn away. This doesn't factor in for supports, as they can have a 4x3 and get into really any support drought content. Next up, a fairly obvious one, titles. Typically when a new raid is released, there's an achievement related to times cleared. This could be related to some initial gates or just the final gate, but with the achievement is paired a title. These become basically gatekeeping staples, especially for new raids. Everyone gets and attaches it and becomes the gatekeeping standard for past and future raids until a new one drops. For a con, it was CN's successor to show at least one clear, notably using the way end strat. Then, after 10 clears, you become one of the thousands now equipping Plague Legion Commander. The last of this tier is Gem Loadout. If you're running level 5s and 1540 plus content, you will likely get rejected. Level 7s are bare minimum, at least in what I've seen, especially bolstered by multiple express passes giving out level 7s and 8s. You can obviously do the content without level 7s, but at least in my experience, it's a baseline factor that is used. These next few factors will be segueing into the likely categorization, but more so beyond the border between the two. First off is card set. I know KLC is somewhat gatekept for Triangle, and some do gatekeep for LOS 30, but typically it is just for LOS 18 or its equivalent sets. I haven't personally seen or looked to gatekeep for not having LOS 30, but if you're running something like Lost Wind Cliff as a DPS, there's a good chance you'll get passed over. Check the card merchants on your map daily, as many of these have the required card set listed at their merchants, and these shops have 2 inventories daily. The last of this tier is server, and I assume after a few more months we'll be relegated to less likely tier to not even be a factor at all, and more specifically the Jumpstart server. In September 2023, Amazon Game Studios offered a wipe server experience for new and returning players to quickly catch up and have their own matchmaking to make the experience less toxic. After a few months, AGS opened the floodgates and merged their markets with the regions, and matchmaking was now region-based once again. I think in the initial few months these servers were heavily gatekept, but I would imagine that has slowly lifted and will continue as time goes by. Now on to the likely tier. First off, we have Synergy. Typically, folks will host a lobby with a few friends already in the group and will build outwards, looking to get party synergies that will boost their own output. This is where classes like Deathblade or Gunlancer can get an easy ride, as their synergies are pretty powerful on some meta classes. And really, any crit synergy will get almost an instant accept. This leaves a plethora of just damage synergies feeling disappointed at the closed door. A close tie-in with synergies is the class itself. Meta classes with high damage, supports with a cleanse on cleanse beneficial content, no non-floor POV glass classes, and let's say high stagger builds are great examples of certain priority classes will have when lobby leaders looking to build out their party. An example of this is having 2 mediocre stagger characters and maybe a non-VPH support on 4-man content. A high stagger class will get high prioritization in this instance to aid the run. Proper stat accessories is big. If you have a greeted 100 qual neck that is your perfect engraving setup, but it's one meta stat build like, I don't know, crit and something like endurance, there's a good chance that if they notice, you may just get pushed away. This is similar if you have a spec only class, but for some reason are running only crit. If the lobby leader notices, once again, it may not be great odds for your off meta build. One last one of this tier list that will likely move up as we get further into normalizing a 1600 main 6 roster is elixirs. The only place that it's currently noticeable is Gargadeth lobbies, as lobbies with 1620s will only take 1620s, as the damage difference between having 35 or 40 set and not having any at all is massive. With the normalization of a roster of 6 at 1600 eye level, my best guess is this will get worse on the NA servers, as this did happen in Korea, with the normalization of roster of 6 at 1600 eye level. Now, onto the less likely tier. Card damage is a rare thing to gatekeep. And until recently, I didn't even realize that people could see your card bonus damage. I genuinely thought that the lobby tiles with 5% damage, bonus, or bust were meme, but I guess some people just refuse to take showers until their annual bath from their mother. Another less than likely option would be a small meta stat difference. This is slightly different than the previous wrong stat option. This refers to a certain builds that have slightly tweaks on, say, just a ring for more efficiency. But some folks may not like, say, a full spec class that doesn't scale as well as spec, going with one crit ring in place of the spec. The final of the less likely tier is maybe the least likely thing, but I have seen it: name and character's outfit. If you have a name that is even remotely bot-like, it may be GG's for you in some cases. Additionally, some folks may get priority to lobby because the fit their character is rocking hits some sort of nostalgia bomb. Once again, I think this is the least likely thing to get gatekept for, but I have seen it, so I thought it was noteworthy. I've provided many different ways in which you can get gatekept as a newer player. Typically, most of these are already sufficient in players who have been playing for a while, whilst you new and returning players will be in the lobby simulator for an unnecessary amount of time. Now, at the start of the video, I did promise one foolproof method for bypassing this, and that is make friends. It sounds simple enough, but by simply joining a friendlier guild on your server and joining their Discord, you'll get into lobbies at a much more frequent speed. When I was first getting into this game at release, I played with some pals as our first MMO basically. We did vault in together as a 4-pair and lobbied with the other 4. I learned quickly the lobbying experience of Lost Ark, and this was super early into what would become a staple of the game. I found that there was an enormous amount of players who would lie about their experience, fake it till you make it style. The main issue I found with this was like 50% of these people who didn't know the raid would rage about any and all mistakes and not take accountability that it was them. This would typically result in me vibe checking people in the lobby to see if they're quote unquote chill. Having someone learn a raid who isn't toxic is significantly less straining than the other option. So when my pals eventually gave up at Vicus, I subjected myself to getting gatekept into oblivion, as at the time I played probably the most gatekept character in the game, the Berserker. After months plus of dealing with this pain, I saw a cringy guild advertising needing more members, and out of desperation, I joined. Immediately, I was offered an opportunity to join a static for the Vicus. Even though some didn't know the mechs, explaining to them was easy enough and was a fraction of the time compared to the lobby simulator, and actually allowed me to practice on polls. Fast forward a few months and I began recruiting folks for the Discord, regardless of the experience, but to have more people be able to experience more raids and not have to be stuck in a lobby simulator. I don't love teaching mass amounts of people raids, especially since there's this phenomenon in this game where people will not watch guides or will glaze over one at 5x speed and expect you to spend like 3 hours teaching them blind for some reason. But there are some people out there who do enjoy this, and regardless of if you're joining a learning Discord, joining a guild on your server, assuming it's not one of the sweaty ones, is a great first step. This is because if they know you somewhat, they will typically invest in you regardless of your roster, eye level, or experience, so that they can get a smoother time weekly. Typically, it's a win-win for both parties. This is why it's my foolproof method for getting past gatekeeping in Lost Ark. I am super introverted, but I'm telling you this one method saves me so much time and stress weekly. Another great option for this is the LFG Discord. It has lots of friendly people looking to teach, but also just lobby up or just make statics. I've used it plenty of times for new content statics, so it's definitely worthwhile. I will have it linked in the description below. In the end, I don't hate gatekeeping. It serves a purpose for me when I'm at homework phase of content and I just want to coast and relax with similar experienced folks. I do though see its negative aspects on newer and returning players. A reminder though, there are typically 6+ DPS whom apply to a lobby immediately, so they may just have not seen your application. And if they did bypass, then it's likely for one of the previous reasons, but don't be so discouraged. Hopefully my highlighting of the factors used in gatekeeping based on their likelihood may help you correct factors to make the experience of the lobby simulator smoother. I would definitely push you to branch out on your server with guilds or even try out the LFG Discord. As an introvert myself, I didn't love this option, but I'm telling you, it makes the game experience significantly better. Playing alone or just with a few newer players can be a terrible experience, so just try to take that extra step to experience a better version of the game. I hope this video helped. Check out my last video with a lengthy guide on buying meta builds for cheap, especially for newer players. I've made a couple of Lost Ark videos geared specifically to the newer and returning player crowd, so check out that playlist where there are a couple of them grouped together. As always, I will answer any questions in the comments below, and if you want to see something in the future, let me know. Until the next one, goodbye.